Evening. What up, people? How's it going? Um, I'm here, and this is going to be a video. Just felt like I just wanted to chat. There's a couple of things on my mind, and based kind of on some videos that we saw, or that I saw recently, rather, some kind of ideas floating around out there, and because I want to put my 2 cents in and tell you what I think about everything. Um, Not really, but I just felt like I wanted to contribute I have been through comments and stuff, but I felt like, I don't know, it's just been kind of rolling around in my head for the past couple of days. And then I was watching a video by our friend Damien, Sleepy Reader, and he made mention of it there too. And I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit about some of the things that are happening. And again, this isn't about any sort of drama. As far as I know, there's no drama going on this time. I'm sure there is somewhere out there, but this is nothing about that. It's just about the idea of creating this stuff. And I know I've touched on things before about why create videos, why do all this stuff. That's not quite what I want to talk about. There's this whole, it started for me seeing Ghost Critic's video, and he was discussing, Mark was discussing his moment in time right now where he's analyzing comics and whether he wants to continue collecting or how he wants to continue collecting, knowing that he doesn't really want to keep up with new comics, and then also how that ties into his channel. And he was talking about how depressing it is seeing these negative channels getting a ton of views, while those of us in the community here who have been doing this for a while and talk a little more positively and kind of got on here for completely different reasons, which maybe is a good place to start. When I started, probably, I don't know, 6-ish years ago now, I think it has to have been, maybe more. Lily's 5. It's got to be 6 or 7 years. I don't know how long exactly. It's been at least that. Anyway, when I started, I don't remember how I stumbled onto the whole comic book YouTube world, to be honest. I don't remember one moment finding something. I don't remember what the first video was I watched. My memory doesn't work like that. But I do know that early on, I had talked to a couple of local. Yeah, it's true. Were we ever so young? It's true. I looked so much different back then, you wouldn't even recognize me. I had a photo sent to me from a friend of mine. This is probably from, oh boy, I don't know, 1998, 1999. I worked at 7-Eleven, and he had this photo, and he sent it to me recently. Let's see if it'll focus in on that. It's probably too much brightness on it for you to see it. Anyway, maybe I'll post it on the Twitter later. That doesn't seem to be showing up. Looking exactly the same, just a little less of this color hair. So when I started, I don't remember exactly what the first video was, but I do remember speaking to a couple of local guys that I know that I work with who are also comic fans. And I remember sending a photo, I think I put it up on my Instagram actually, where I'd taken a screenshot of Ghost Critic and a screenshot of Sleepy Reader and kind of put them together and just kind of sent that photo out there like, hey, you guys who are reading comics, check out these two on YouTube. I've been addicted to their videos lately, because I remember I just had I mean, there was other people that I was watching. Those were the first two. I would say Damien and Mark were the first two that I watched. And then I was watching people like Travis Oddfellow's thoughts. And then it kind of expanded from there. I think I was watching a bit of Howler Mouse's videos at the time. I think I might have been seeing some Comic Roundtable, which would have been Captain Cummings at the time. Oh, sorry. We still say his name out loud. That's going to attract somehow. That's going to be a search now that's going to happen. And who else? I mean, Captain Strangeliffe was obviously around. Beardo was around. Wednesday Serial. Of course, Costin Bromstar. And then that just kind of led into DaCosta and all these other people, and it just kind of grew from there. But the original two that I was watching were Mark and Sleepy Reader for sure. And it just got me interested. GPAP, how's it going? That just got me interested in kind of what this community was, and kind of just discovered how this whole internet YouTube comic world worked. And it pretty much appealed to me right from the outset. And it appealed to me because there was these guys that were my age and older and younger talking about books in a way that I really enjoyed. They were talking, you know, not everything was super positive. There was videos where they kind of didn't trash a book, but they didn't mix words about how they felt about something if it wasn't that great. But that overall kind of positivity and just wanting to interact, and the whole idea seemed to be interact. And especially then, there was no monetization on videos that I was watching anyway. I'm sure that sort of thing existed, but I wasn't watching those kind of videos, so it didn't exist to me, even if it did exist for real. So it really was about, it was kind of the message board taken to a different level, where you could have your thoughts, and you could go on these long rambles. Not that I ever do anything like that, where you could kind of just talk about things, as opposed to trying to put these complex thoughts down into one paragraph on a message board that people kind of scroll over. Now you just put it all down in a video that people scroll through and don't click on. So that was what it was for me, and seeing these guys and seeing the way, oh, Mr. Vidal, how are you? Seeing the way these guys were just easy to approach and wanting to have conversations and really inviting. And it wasn't about anything else other than, hey, I like these things called comic books. You guys like these things called comic books. Let's talk about these comic books and show off what we get, and have videos where we discuss things and talk in the comment section and all of that. So thanks to those fine folks, fine gentlemen, that kind of sparked me to make videos. And that was way back when. And I haven't looked back since. So the thing that has come up, and I think Damien said it really well, and it is exactly, and he even gracefully mentioned me in his video, as he has a couple of times, which I'm always pleased about. He's always been a great supporter and a hell of a guy. He hit it right, the nail right on the head. There just seems to be that idea, that how I've always approached it was that it's here. If I want to talk, I talk. If I don't, I don't. 11th year GPAP, holy crap. If I don't want to, I don't. And there's other things that are happening in everybody's life, but in mine, because I'm talking about myself, where it's work related or kid related, or there's just time. It's not that I'm taking some big dramatic break or anything. It's just I don't have time for videos, so I don't put any sort of pressure on it. And I'm not trying to say that Mark does put pressure on it. I know that he's dealing with something a little different, though. I know that there's people out there, they have gotten loads of views before. I rarely, this is not a criticism, by the way, I don't care ultimately. I hit around the 50, 60, 70. It's under 100 views. There's a few videos for some reason that are in the thousands, but I think those are just Marvel movie related. People doing searches and stumbling on the videos or whatever. But it's never really been about that. It's just been about the enjoyment of doing it. And that was the thing that I think from Mark specifically, if there's no enjoyment there, you shouldn't do it. Absolutely not. If you feel like it's a trial, you shouldn't do it. If you feel like, oh, Mr. CDC, holy crap, look at you, even commenting. Ghost Critic was one of the first people to give me a shout out. It seems like he knew what this was all about before any of us. It's true. And I think, and saying that out loud, I think Ghost Critic was the first guy to give me a shout out as well, too. but it's one of those things. If you're not enjoying it, you absolutely shouldn't do it, because that's what it ultimately is about. I do this because I like it. I like that I have this in my personal life. I like that this is something that I can do, that I keep work at an arm's length, and this is my time. This is me. This is what I like to do. Um, that said, I know that there's people that know about the channel. I don't particularly discuss it. I just don't particularly want to. This is my personal time. Work is my work time. You know what I mean? And I do this because I like it. I like talking to you all. I especially love that I've moved away from creating actual videos, and that this Google Hangouts is so much easier to use. That said, when I was signing on, there was a whole bunch of notices coming up that in 2019 there's going to be a makeover, which just makes me kind of groan, because that means it's going to take another fucking week to figure it all out again as it crashes and does whatever it's going to do. But this is exactly what I like to do. I like to just talk about a bunch of shit that interests me. I like to do all that stuff that I've said in a video, and I'm not going to rehash that whole video. That's why I do these things. And if you're not enjoying it, you shouldn't do it. And the only thing is that the negative side on anything can get really disheartening. And the only thing that I'll say to that is what I've said to a few people, that the block option is your best friend. You don't have to listen to these fucking people. You absolutely don't. I blocked so many goddamn people, and it's because it's my time, because it's my hobby, because I am doing something for myself, and that doesn't mean I have to listen to anybody else's bullshit. So that means I have free reign to take control of my presence and how I interact with the internet and how I interact with this world around me when it comes to this virtual world. I do not bat an eyelash when I block someone for being a motherfucker. I don't shed a single tear. I really don't. And that's kind of where the balance is, right? That's where it gets you, because yes, those fucking channels that talk shit and just want to shit all over everything, they get thousands of views. Fuck them. They can wallow in their own misery and take knives to comics and whatever other stupid bullshit they want to do. Go for it. If that's what gets you views and that's what it's about for you, that's you. It's not what it's about for me. I do it because I like it. I don't know why I'd want to spend time on stuff that I don't like in my off time. You know, everybody's in bed. This is my time to kind of relax and do something I enjoy. I'm not sure why I would want to do it if I didn't enjoy it, or if I wanted to spout some negativity. Yeah, so that's kind of all on that, really. And I mean, I'm sorry to see them go. And again, and I can also sympathize with what he's saying, and I think Damien touched on it too. It's just things change, right? I don't watch nearly as many videos as I used to. Not even close. There was so many guys, and that's partially because a lot of the guys that I did watch, they don't do as many videos anymore. A lot of that has fallen by the wayside. But otherwise, I just don't watch a ton of. I don't watch a ton of comic book community videos. I just don't anymore. I watch a lot of YouTube. I have, as Damien said, and as Cosm Bromstar said, I've got a lot of interests. So there's a lot of different things that I watch, and you know, I kind of go through cycles with stuff. And it's not that I don't like watching the comic book videos. It's just it's not always my go-to thing anymore. They're still there, and I do watch some people on a semi-regular basis. But it's a different world out there. I see people talking about, oh, there's these new guys making videos that are this, that, and the other, and I haven't kept up with any of it. I haven't kept up with any of it, sorry. I don't really know who's out there now. I'm sure there's a ton of great new channels that I would probably love, but I just don't do it. Collect what you love, post what you love. There's no other reason. Yeah, TJ Watson, well said. Gorvidal, people like yourself, the others in the comments are the friends I had when I was a kid reading heavy metal, epic, and Warren magazines. because no other kid was doing it. I'm glad I know you all, and we're really glad we know you, Mr. Vidal. That's the thing, and that's also been the bonus of it, is getting to meet all these people, meet in quotes, and just kind of talk to people. It's been great. And I love the fact that there's a bunch of us that have different tastes on things, and then talk about different books. And, I enjoy that, it's fun. And that's why I do it. All that said, I completely, I meant the friends I wish I had who also read the same books. Yes. I do understand Ghost Critics kind of moment that he's having. I totally get it, especially with the whole collecting and what's the point and all this kind of stuff and where am I going with this. It just sounds like he's really having a moment where he's just re-examining what it is that he's doing. And it's not from it, by the sounds of it, to me, it wasn't from a financial hardships thing. It's just a re-examining, and that's a healthy thing to do. You need to kind of re-examine and look at yourself every once in a while and look at what you're doing and really just take a hard look, especially when you're a collector. You need to take those hard looks. And what is it that I'm doing? What is it that I want to do? And that's why you make some of the choices that you make. And if it's a break that he needs, or if he never comes back to making videos, whatever he does, I'm sure that he'll be healthy and make the right choices for himself. It's tough to not let all that negativity that's around affect you. You just really have to try your best to be okay with shutting that side down. And it's not about, as I've said before, I know me and CDC have talked about this, it's not about telling people what they have to think. It's not about censoring people. Like I've said before, you can think and have all the beliefs that you want. I wouldn't for a second think that anything I said would change your beliefs. You can absolutely have whatever beliefs, and as ignorant as I may think they are, they're yours to have. I'm not telling you what to think. I'm just telling you, I don't want to fucking hear it. Some things I just don't want to hear about. And that's maybe where he's at, where it's just blocking some of that negativity out, right? So when I was watching Damien's video today, I just also wanted to say, and I know that I don't say this a lot, I do appreciate, like I mentioned in his comments too, he's always had nice things to say about me and my channel over the years, and I do really appreciate it. It does mean a lot to me, and I don't know if I do it enough to people, but it was just a really nice thing to kind of hear another shout out, you know what I mean, that he still enjoys and we can still chat and stuff. It's great. The other thing that he was talking about that I wanted to touch on was, now I didn't watch the video, and I don't know the full backstory, so maybe that's your cue to just shut off anything I'm about to say from this point. So I'm going to try to talk about this in kind of a general sense, because I don't know specific arguments and specific reasons. I can get a sense of what those reasons may be, but there was a video that he had that I missed, actually, where in this last video he was discussing the comment section. Then there was talk of Robert Crumb and people kind of wanting to distance themselves from him. And I don't know what generation we're talking. I don't know what age groups we're talking, with the fact of people trying to kind of wash him out of history and stuff. But in general, I just wanted to talk about that idea of kind of people who have created something or done something that's offensive, and how we kind of filter that, and how you filter that yourself. And one of the things that came up, I think it was in Scott's video too, that he had made mention, and the downside of some of these live chats sometimes is I think there's still that opportunity for misunderstanding and miscommunication. So when I mention some things about what was said in videos, please take that with a grain of salt, that I do realize that even though this is a live video and there's live comments that you can respond to, I do understand that there still can be miscommunication. So if I'm saying anything that wasn't intended, my intent is not to call anybody out and not to start any shit whatsoever. I am completely accepting that I may have just misheard or misunderstood. There was a little bit that it just seemed like there's a group of people that maybe want the politics out of there, comics, and that the personal life of the creators doesn't matter to them, and they don't want that to play a part. My thing with that is I think that's pretty damn near impossible, especially this day and age. I would say way back when, before social media and internet and all this kind of stuff, or when I was growing up reading these comics, or even when the internet did exist, and there was still this kind of dark area where you could only read interviews in Comics Journal, for example, or what other publications, there was still this kind of disconnect with these creators. So it didn't play a part then, for sure it didn't. And maybe that's kind of what some of those thoughts are back. I sure am referring to the legendary underground comic artist. What a shock. We'd be talking about underground comics on this channel. Um, I think there is a bit of that throwback of wanting to have a time, and maybe this is where some of it is coming from. Again, this whole nostalgia tied in with collecting, but then nostalgia coming to, I'm so sick of knowing about everybody's personal life. I just want to read a book to read a book. I don't want to know about the creator and what bullshit he said or he or she said online or whatever. So maybe that's where the comment was more coming from, that idea of being able to read a comic and having nothing around it. For me personally, the one that comes up in recent memory is Brendan McCarthy, getting to know some of his politics in the past year or so really makes me look at his art much different. I still have the Brendan McCarthy comics that I have, and I still enjoy looking at them. I can't exactly look at them the same way I do when I do look at them. I do think about those things now, so I think it's impossible to separate that. Um, or if you do, I don't personally know how to do it. So maybe I should just speak for myself. I can't separate. I cannot separate that stuff like I used to. Growing up, I listened to all sorts of music. I had a time where I was listening to a lot of black metal, and it was a lot of these musicians, these cult black metal guys who had kind of done these horrific acts and had these kind of anti-Semitic and kind of a white supremacist. Some of them had these kind of white supremacist kind of ideals behind their music, along with the church burnings, along with killing members in other bands and stuff. And at first, that kind of element attracted me to it to some degree. The white supremacist stuff, never. I was never attracted. That was something that I always held true of. Like, if there was sense of that, that was a cutoff. That was done. You're done. I'm not listening. I'm not participating. That was always a line in the sand for me that I wasn't going to cross. But there was other things, because I know where some of it comes from, the whole religious side of it and the church burnings and stuff. I honestly don't know if I 100% disagree with it, to be completely blunt. But that's a whole other topic. Just that idea of separating the artist from their music. I really enjoyed the music quite a bit, and I still do enjoy some of that black metal stuff. I like the sound of it, but it does get harder to distance. I had a brief run-in. Burzum I think he still has a YouTube channel. I watched a couple of his videos after he got out of jail. I watched a couple of his videos just to kind of see what kind of things he was talking about, and I could sense some things, and I made a couple of comments, and he called me out in the comments, and we had a brief couple of words, very, very brief, because then I just didn't watch anymore, and I blocked him, because I just, again, that's not what I'm here for. I'm not here for that kind of thing. But it's this idea that these ideals that these people have do permeate their work. You can't get away from that. If I create something, there's going to be my voice in it, and it's going to have a certain perspective. It's just going to. Even if I'm putting my voice into a character that's polar opposite of me, it's still going to be my voice interpreting a character who would be in that position. So there's still my politics and my beliefs are going to be in that. So how do you separate that kind of thing, and how do you get away from that? And obviously that's an individual choice. I just know that some of it I can't separate. Now, which brings me to the point about Robert Crumb. So in all of this conversation, I still think that there's some things where maybe context is the right word, maybe it's not. We'll continue the sentence and you tell me. At that time, when these underground comics artists were starting, there was this kind of backlash, and maybe we're entering it again, is sometimes what I end up thinking. Every time I kind of have a look through underground comics or get some new ones and kind of flip through them and read bits and pieces and do some reading on their history and stuff, some of the topics, and I've said this before in videos, some of the topics really seem to be even more impactful today than maybe they were then, especially when you're dealing with like ecological stuff. There's, like I've said before, there's stuff on recycling. I've got a comic book about abortion, that sort of thing, an underground comic on abortion. All those things come into play now, and I'm wondering if some of this kind of backlash that they were speaking about then is even more relevant now than it was then, because there really is, again, this whole sense of you've got to watch what you say and you've got to just talk about things in a certain way. And I'm going to try not to do many sidebars, but I don't think that's a bad thing. I think people should be held accountable for the things they say. I think if you're going to integrate and discuss like an adult with other adults, you can't say whatever ignorant shit pops into your head. You just shouldn't. You can say whatever you want. You probably shouldn't, though. It depends on what kind of conversation you want to have. So I think one of the things that they were fighting against back then, first of all, they kind of had a throwback to the EC books, the horror and stuff like that before it was banned. So the pre kind of code that they were kind of hearkening back to. Plus, a guy like Crumb specifically was influenced a lot. I know that he was influenced by Justin Green, for example, who also, and if you ever see this, by the way, I know I've spoken about it in a video, highly recommended, Sacred and Profane, really, really great. So Justin Green was doing these autobiographical comics that really responded with a guy like Crumb. And the good thing about when you're going to explore this autobiography side of really just presenting yourself warts and all, first of all, it's an incredibly brave thing to do. And second of all, it's going to be warts and all, which means that some things that you are going to say about yourself or the way you're going to present yourself, if you're true to that idea, is going to be offensive to somebody, is going to bother some people. But I think the difference with a guy like Crumb and maybe some people in more political spectrums or even in comic books now is he was never presenting himself in a way that was like, I'm a church going fella and these are my beliefs and I hold fast to these beliefs. And then on the side, he was doing this horrible shit and then kind of denying it. He was always a bit of a fuck up. He was always talking about himself in these books, but beyond that, they were also doing things like they were pushing those limits on purpose. They were trying to be offensive on purpose. Zap Comics was trying to be offensive on purpose. It wasn't a thing that they accidentally did and were like showing their true colors by mistake. They were doing that stuff on purpose. Like, that was the intent. So holding that into some sort of context as why they were doing stuff, does that excuse some of the things that he did in his comics that were considered misogynistic, that were considered by some to be racist? No, it's not an excuse for anything. It's just the reality was they were trying to push boundaries. That's exactly what he was trying to do. That's partially why he's such an important person within comics history, because he created this new era of how comics could be. Or he didn't create it, but he's the one that gets credit for it. Let's just be honest about that. There's a lot of guys that were doing things. He just gets the most credit because he's the name that came out of it, because he was also a fucking hell of an artist And he didn't just do that stuff. That's the other thing. I mean, things started transitioning and he told stories. They were mostly autobiographical, but he did have some, you know, like the Stoned Again strip with the guy with his head in his hands as his face starts melting as he's getting more stoned throughout the strip. Mr. Natural was more about, you know, your id and kind of your conscience, uh, trying to control it. So he was always battling with these images of himself to some degree. And even when he was doing stuff like Angel Food McSpade, for example, there was this whole sense of with some of those stories where it's this kind of straight-laced white guy who falls for this African American woman who's drawn in a stereotypical way. But then by the end of the story, they're completely in love, and he's kind of abandoned his world and gone out and lives in the bush in kind of like this wild sort of nature. So there's more to it going on there than just I'm going to present somebody in blackface and kind of do a little dance and just to see if I can piss people off. To me, and again, this is all me because I'm the one speaking. You're watching my video, so I'm speaking for myself. I always find it funny that you have to say in my opinion, because obviously it's your opinion because you're the one talking. Um, there's a little more to it than that. And I mean, can I understand though why people would feel it? A new generation with that distance may think that there was nothing this individual contributed that was worthwhile and just sees the offensive stuff. Absolutely. And again, that's everybody's individual choice. Do I think it's a shame? Ah, I don't know. At the end of the day, it's fucking comic books. At the end of the day, people get lost to history all the time. Is it a shame when every single individual gets lost for the through the airbrushing of people's memory and their history? I don't know. I see a lot of people on Twitter spouting other people's opinion because they can't think. Yeah, well, that is also correct. Yes, you got me there. I mean, sure, that kind of stuff happens all the time. Is it a shame every single time? It's always going to be a shame to someone because there's always going to be someone who was a fan of that person and that person had an impact on their lives growing up that's going to think that that's a bad idea. But you can't control it, I'm afraid. Um, I don't think you'll ever completely be able to get rid of a figure like Robert Crumb. I just don't think so. And again, am I making excuses for any of the things that he portrayed or possibly did within his personal life? To be honest with you, I don't know. And again, maybe this is where it comes back to I didn't watch the video. I don't know what is specifically people are commenting on. Maybe something has come out recently that he did something horrific. I am not at this particular moment on this day, November 1st, 2018, I am not privy to that information. So maybe that's out there and maybe I'm missing a big point of this. But again, it's not necessarily to talk about Robert Crumb. It's just that idea in general. Um, yeah, I mean, that's kind of my thoughts on it. I felt like there was something else, somewhere else I was going with all that, but now it's gone. I think context is a big thing and what people's intent was. And again, the I just go back to the idea of I think it's really important to um, have those avenues where you can kind of just be really true to yourself, because when you're being true to yourself and you're saying these things as uncomfortable as it must be, and if you're especially if you're getting attacked for it, the fact is you're saying stuff that at the end of the day we're all fucking animals and we all have these ideas and urges and these kind of internal battles. And the thing that I can't remember who said it, and I apologize, but it was in one of the videos. If we went back to anybody's, if we analyzed anybody's life, guaranteed there's going to be one or two nuggets that are less than pretty. Now, does that mean that everybody has gone out and committed some horrific crime? Of course not. But there's always going to be something that you're going to be embarrassed about that maybe shows you in a less than positive light. And obviously, there's going to be degrees of that. And again, I'm not talking about like not everybody's gone out and raped someone in their life. That's not what I'm saying at all. just so that there's going to be degrees of things that you're not be proud of. And if it's really sat there and looked upon by a bunch of people who especially don't agree with whatever that particular thing is, you're going to be made to feel like you're the worst person on the face of the earth. But the idea that any of us have a life where we've lived every single moment in absolute perfection and always held ourselves to a certain standard and never swayed or never strayed from that path is absurd. And how brave it is to kind of show yourself in that light, I think is impressive, because then you just end up reaching a different level with people that you're talking with, or with people that you're telling a story to. You just get that extra bit out of it as a viewer or a reader, or listening to the album or whatever. You're getting that extra connection, and I think that's important. I think your healthy critical approach to Crumb, the artist, is what the forum should have done instead of booing him when they heard his name. And if they were artists, they excommunicated their own. So, Mr. Vidal, it sounds like maybe you know more about it. Was there an actual moment where people, is that true? He came out and people booed him? If so, that's unfortunate. But again, doesn't completely surprise me. I'm sure he did his awkward chuckle about it and did whatever he did. Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty much the things that were most pressing on my mind. I was going to make a comment on Damien's video about Crumb, but I don't know, it was one of those moments where I felt like I had a lot more to say than it would have been. It just would have been difficult to put that into a couple of sentences in a comment underneath the crotch box, as Spiro calls it, on a video. Yeah, I think that was it. So, what are you guys doing? Yeah. Yeah, so maybe that is it. I just wanted to give Gore Vidal a minute in case he was typing, if something comes up to comment on. But thanks very much for tuning in, everybody. I do appreciate it. The 70 of you that are here still. Wine 49er, I do see you. And you say you're still going to collect Robert Crumb. And yeah, and that's the thing. And that's the other thing for me as well. Like, I do appreciate his art. I do like his stuff. And I do enjoy what I have of his. But honestly, when I'm collecting underground comics, his are the ones that I pass on mostly, because it's not kind of top of. I'm not the biggest fan of his. It's not like I dislike him, but I don't feel the need to own every single thing that he's done. You know what I mean? Except for the Zap comics. I want all the Zap comics. Damien, you're just popping in. I'm just wrapping it up. Nice to see you, though. I was just saying that I had some thoughts on videos I've watched lately, yours as well, and just was talking about a whole bunch of things, the community, as well as the whole Robert Crumb point that you discussed in your last video. But with that, that's it. Go back and watch the whole thing. You. Thanks very much, everybody, for tuning in. I do appreciate all of you, and I say it, and I maybe don't say it enough. You guys are the best. I really enjoy having these interactions, and I enjoy that this is the community that we've made for ourselves. And those other fuckfaces can talk whatever ignorant shit they want to. They can do it well over there, because we're over here, and we've got a good group over here, and they don't know much about us. I don't get any of those. I'm better not say it out loud. That sort of world doesn't seem to spill over into my little video world here as well. I see. Okay, understood, Mr. Vidal. It doesn't seem to spill into my world, so they can do whatever they want over there, and they can talk whatever bullshit they want. We got us, and I do appreciate it, and I'm glad you're all here, and I'm glad that at the end of the day, I'm glad that I'm doing this, and I'm glad that I took the plunge into making videos after watching these YouTubers. And I'm not going anywhere. So we'll see you the next time I have something to say. Later.